Hello and welcome to our Harmonie Regional Transportation Seminar. My name is Art Spratlin and I'm coming to you from the Butler Snow Law Firm in Jackson, Mississippi. Thanks for joining us today. We're going to have a little fun with new truck technology. So I've got a lot of material to cover, so let's jump in and hang on and get started. Just to give you a little bit of a roadmap, I'm going to start by talking about cars, a little bit electric cars, autonomous cars, and then we're going to switch over to trucks, talk about electric trucks, autonomous trucks, and then we'll talk a little bit about legislation that's developing around this new technology, and then talk about some liability issues. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and get started. First of all, level 5 autonomy. That's what we're trying to get to. That's the goal of everybody in the business, is to get to level 5. We'll talk about that in a little bit. And if you've ever heard a talk on this topic before, you know how I'm going to start this. It's going to be for safety. If you're afraid of robot cars, you should be terrified of human drivers because we're not very good at it. In the United States alone, 6 million crashes per year, 2.5 million injuries, around 37,000 deaths per year. That's like 100 deaths a day in the automotive world. And you see the numbers there, 94% caused by human error. So the goal is to get the humans out from behind the wheel of the car. You'll hear a lot of new terms in the next few years. One is CASE mobility. CASE stands for connected, autonomous, shared, and electric. That's what you're going to see in cars. That's what you're going to be seeing in trucks down the road. Now, one of my favorite words, is fun to say, autonomopocalypse is one way this has been described based on the change in human behavior and what you're going to be seeing. Autonomy is freedom. The age of the passenger is now. The age of the driver is over, and a lot of that stems from young people not wanting to get their driver's license now. 16-year-olds are not getting their license like they used to because they don't want to be the one stuck driving the car. They want to be the one that's free to use their cell phone or text or whatever they do. And if you don't believe a lot of this, I always like to say follow the money. That usually is the answer. The recent mergers and partnerships in this industry have been simply astounding. The collaboration between companies that are bitter rivals or used to be are now collaborating on this. I've highlighted a few of the mergers here recently. Amazon bought a company called Zoox, which is a California ride-hailing business, reportedly for $1.2 billion. Amazon's also invested in Rivian, which is a self-driving pickup truck company, and Aurora, another self-driving company. And just this month, in September of 2020, GM announced it's buying into Nikola Motors, which is the electric truck maker and electric pickup maker known as the Badger. Chevy's way behind. They're trying to catch up in the EV industry. They plan to have 20 electric vehicles by 2023. They're also planning to rebrand the Hummer to come back with an electric Hummer. Lyft and Uber have recently gone public, so a lot going on in the industry. Now, specifically as to electric cars, electrification and autonomy are two different things. Although you'll hear of electric cars, you'll hear of autonomous cars. Sometimes you'll hear it'll be the same car, like a Tesla, but oftentimes it's two separate things, but they're both directing the same, or going the same direction in our next 5 to 7 years, and this will be our future, as you'll see. China is the world leader in EVs, but Europe hit a milestone just this year in 2020. They sold 500,000 electric vehicles in the first half of 2020, which surpassed China, believe it or not. And one of the reasons you'll see here, a lot of the European countries have set deadlines for when they must go electric and do away with all fossil fuels. A lot of the companies in this space that you've heard about, some you haven't: Tesla, Lucid, Byton, Faraday Future, NIO, Polestar. These are all electric car companies. A lot of these are startups, plus every other major manufacturer is really in a race in this game too. There's a Tesla Model 3. You'll see this is the leading car in the luxury space for the last 3 years. Elon Musk noted that all the previous electric cars were ugly, so he wanted to have a sexy electric car. That's why his models are known as the S, the 3, the X, and the Y. The Lucid Air has gotten a lot of attention lately. It's been in the news. This is a former Tesla executive who's designed the Lucid Air, and some really astounding numbers. This is going to be an expensive car, $80,000 to $140,000. Supposed to go 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, top speed of 200 miles an hour. Be among the fastest cars in the world with a range of 517 miles, supposedly, which is big. Most of the electric cars get under 300 miles on a full charge. So looking at the pickup space, Rivian, Bollinger, Nikola, we mentioned earlier, Tesla and their Cybertruck, Lordstown Endurance. These are cars companies you'll be hearing about. There's a picture of the Rivian. It's supposed to come out late 20 or early 21. There's the Lordstown Endurance, which is manufactured at the old Lordstown GM plant in Ohio. All right, now let's jump to autonomous cars. A lot of players fighting for this space. And back to the levels, we talked about first level 5. And if you see this chart to the left, the blue, level 0, 1, and 2, that's the cars that are basically on the market today and have increasing amount of human interaction. When you look to the right of the chart, you'll see levels 3, 4, and 5. You get more into less human involvement and more of the technology taking over the vehicle. And at level 5, that's full self-driving, where the human doesn't have any ability to take over the car. It's completely self-driving. Levels 3 and 4 have some degree of human intervention potentially when needed. So the AV car companies are Waymo, Cruise, Zoox, Aurora, Uber, Aptiv, Argo. Those are just some of the names you'll be seeing in addition to the traditional legacy manufacturers. You've probably seen the Waymo car, formerly the Google car, that's testing in Phoenix right now. They're the leader of the pack in the car space in testing. They've been doing their ride-hailing service in Phoenix since early of 2017, and are still doing that. Waymo One is the first commercial paid ride-hailing service that they started back in Phoenix on a pilot limited type basis. They claim over 10 million miles of testing driven on public roads, or actually in 2019, and over 20 million miles on public roads since the beginning of their testing program. This is formerly called the Google Chauffeur program, which started in 2009. So when you think about that, you realize how long they've actually been doing this. That's 11 years Google has been testing this technology and doing drives across the country in lots of circumstances. So the technology has been well tested and has been going on for quite a while. And the question that was recently asked of Waymo, which was interesting, is how do they intend to make a profit? Well, there's 4 ways. If you see here, one is ride hailing, paid rides like a robo-taxi service, which they're doing right now in Phoenix. Secondly, urban delivery. They use these same cars to deliver locally in the Phoenix area. And then long-haul AV trucking, which they mentioned is their biggest market opportunity that they see. And we'll talk more about that in a little bit. But then selling the technology to the random various automakers. So that's 4 ways they intend to make a profit from Waymo. Aurora is another startup self-driving company. It's big because Chris Urmson's one of the pioneers or legacy members of this space, and that's his company. So it's one to watch. Ford partnered with a company called Argo AI. The robotaxi market is actually happening right now. As I mentioned, Waymo in Phoenix, Uber was doing this in the Pittsburgh area, and Aptiv and Lyft have been doing this in Las Vegas for about almost 2 years now. The delivery services are new and interesting. A lot of that is in the paper. You see the Neuro car delivering for Kroger and Domino's. That's the little Neuro car. It looks like a big lunchbox, basically. Here it is again, showing the setup for Domino's pizza delivery. You can see the doors open and you can reach in and get your own pizza. And here's a little clip that someone took of a Neuro going down the road in a neighborhood. You can roll that, please. Neuro was granted the first ever exemption by NHTSA, and that made big news because that's the first time NHTSA has done anything like that to allow this unmanned car that carries goods only with no humans to travel on public roads at a slower speed. And here's a map of the connectivity you'll see. Vehicle to vehicle, vehicle to internet, vehicle to everything. V2X is what we're getting at. And with 5G coming along, you'll see there from this map how everything's connected. The cars, the trucks, the planes, the boats, to the street signs. It'll be an all-connected world out there. 5G, you read about that in the paper a lot. 5G will be a big game changer, especially when it comes to cellular vehicle to everything, which will allow all the cars to communicate with each other. And there's a lot of skepticism about when 5G will be rolled out and when it'll be operational on a big front, but that will certainly have a big effect on the automotive community. Now let's jump to self-driving trucks. Driving is one of the most dangerous jobs in the U.S., and you can see some of the numbers there. 4,415 large truck fatalities in 2018. A lot of the occupants of the trucks were killed, plus the majority, though, were occupants of other vehicles. And again, driver error is blamed for about 90% of that. And at the same time, we have about a 60,000 person truck driver shortage. So AV is the clear solution because the software doesn't get tired or distracted. It has a superhuman level of awareness and can see up to 1 mile ahead with 360-degree full awareness, and it can learn. The trucks will learn from every other truck on the road, which is much more than the combined knowledge of a human driver who drives their whole career. And look at the numbers from an accident reconstructionist standpoint. Human perception reaction is about 0.7 seconds. The typical truck driver is about 3/4 of a second to 1.5, but the AV truck reaction time is less than 100 milliseconds, and the truck can see a mile ahead. So you begin to see how the numbers and the safety add up. And technology, by definition, is just using the latest development to solve problems. So what are the problems with trucking? Are there any problems with trucking? Well, sure there are. Safety, accidents, fuel economy, traffic congestion, asset utilization, which is only about 50%, maintenance cost, driver shortages, and the humans again. We're back to the humans. They're getting in the way. Humans need sleep. They need restroom breaks. They need air conditioning. They want salaries and benefits. And they need training and discipline. They have good days and bad days, and sometimes they quit. So these are some things that are bound to be corrected with the technology. The money invested in the AV trucks is astonishing. And now there's been kind of a switch in the industry. People realize that this will be of a bigger economic benefit to the trucking world than the cars. One reason the trucks are being trained to drive highway interstate where it's easy. It's hard to train these cars to drive in downtown San Francisco or downtown Dallas, but it's easy pretty much to have them drive down an interstate. So that's why it's quicker and will be more to the economic benefit of the trucking community before it gets to cars. There's several large players here. I've listed some of them. Kodiak Robotics, Waymo Via, which is the Google company, Embark, Too Simple, and a few others we'll take a look at. But I first want to speak to one that's not in the business anymore. Starsky Robotics was one of the pioneers in this business. They've been featured on 60 Minutes several times. I've actually had them here to Mississippi to visit and meet with our legislators. But they were their thing was teleops. They wanted to remotely control the trucks where a driver could be at home in his bedroom, kind of like we are now during COVID, working from home and driving the trucks remotely. And their funding dried up in December of last year, in early January, and so Starsky is out of business. But I mentioned that because they were one of the leaders. They had led the effort to get legislation passed across the country, and but they lost their funding, and so they are no more at the moment. Another new and interesting company is Kodiak Robotics, founded in April 2018 with some former Google and Otto and Uber engineers. They're testing in Texas and have been since last year on I-45 between Dallas and Houston. They're hauling for commercial customers, and they're actually making money off of hauling loads right now, and also gaining the benefit of testing and simulation as they do so. They plan to operate as a freight carrier, will own their own trucks and deliver their own freight. And here's a clip on Kodiak. You can roll that, please. Waymo Via, as I mentioned, Waymo is the former Google company. They've spun off their trucking division into a company called Waymo Via. Again, they have the experience going back to 2009 from the Google car project, so they are the oldest and largest player in the industry. And you'll see three terms here. Waymo Driver, that's what they call their software. Waymo One is the consumer ride-hailing service, and Waymo Via is their trucking side. Waymo Via was kind of spun off to its own company in 2017 and has been expanding its testing steadily into California and Arizona, and now they are moving into Texas as well. Things kind of started in California, then they moved to Arizona. Now it seems to be a lot of the testing is actually moving to Texas. There's their route map. You can see there the California routes, and then from New Mexico, Arizona on into Texas is their current map where they're operating. There's one of the Waymo Via vehicles, and there it is alongside one of the Pacifica vehicles that they are also testing with. This just shows some of the sensors on the vehicle, the LiDAR, radar, and camera equipment that's being used. Embark is another one that's been in the business for quite a while with an exit-to-exit strategy of driving long-haul interstate. They made a well-known cross-country run in February of 18. They went coast to coast, 2,400 miles in 5 days, and which obviously they had to take rest breaks, but if you didn't have to take the rest breaks, they could have done it in 2 days. Too Simple is really big. They're a Chinese and U.S. company, started in 2015. They've got a lot of money behind them, and they've really done a lot of testing in Arizona primarily. They started the world's first autonomous freight network with Penske, UPS, U.S. Express, McLean, and others, and they are putting together a complete AV truck ecosystem that allows self-driving trucks to come to market safely and efficiently. They use Too Simple Connect, which is autonomous operations mapping system. The AFN, the freight network, has 3 phases, and it lays the groundwork for AV trucks to be commercially available by 2024. The targets have moved some, but now they're shooting for 2024. Too Simple is already operating on 7 routes autonomously from Phoenix to Dallas, and have an agreement with Penske to provide their preventive maintenance and over-the-road service from their 750 facilities. They earn revenue at the same time while they're hauling loads commercially too. Back in 2019, they announced they had 12 contracted customers and making 3 to 5 deliveries per day and steadily growing their fleet. And they are also opening a Dallas depot in 2020. They partnered with Navistar. This year, Navistar bought a stake in Too Simple, and they're going to help develop trucks. And again, they hope to have L4 level trucks with no humans in the cab by 2024. So we'll see if they can meet that standard. UPS, FedEx, Amazon have all also invested in Too Simple. And here's a quick video clip from Too Simple. Roll that, please.
The trucking industry is changing. As commercial demand increases, the number of truck drivers steadily declines. In fact, there's currently a shortage of 50,000 drivers, a number that's expected to increase to 175,000 by the end of 2024. The industry will soon face a 100% turnover rate with an average driver age of 49 years old. So, we decided to create a brand new world of opportunity in the trucking industry. Introducing Too Simple. Now, things are not only changing, they're transforming in the most eye-opening and exciting way. Too Simple is the world's largest, most advanced, completely self-driving truck company. Too Simple is the only autonomous truck company running daily commercial operations today. Right now, Too Simple's computer visioning software interacts with cameras and LiDAR arrays to complete multiple autonomous trips and deliveries per day, many for Fortune 100 brands.
And then here's another quick video clip from Too Simple showing a little bit from the technology side what the truck sees going down the road. Roll that, please. And then the map, I mentioned the freight network. You can see here the Midwest is where they are planning to roll it out to start. Then the Southeast will come next. And then finally the rest of the country in phase 3. Phase 3 is a little harder because you've got snow and ice as you go north for the testing. Plus AI is another company that's founded in 2016 by Stanford grads and has made a lot of news recently. They did a 2,800-mile cross-country trip hauling Land O'Lakes butter at the end of 2019, which got a lot of news. And they're expecting full level 4 trucks in the next 3 to 5 years, and they're already testing in about 17 states. Pronto AI is another one of the startups. It's well known because Anthony Lewandowski, who was behind the Google car project and the Uber Auto lawsuit out in California, and he's actually was just sentenced for the criminal side of the Google theft dispute. And but that company is still developing an add-on package. You can see here their Copilot. They say they can add it on to any existing truck for about $5,000, which includes adaptive cruise control, automatic emergency braking, and proactive lane centering. Ike Robotics, another new startup trucking company named after Dwight Eisenhower, who was behind the first interstate road system. They don't test currently on public roads. They're doing all their testing on test tracks and in simulation. They're focusing on long haul. And interesting, they say that their tech will add as many short-term or short-haul drivers as they may take away from long-haul drivers. Trucking jobs are one of the interesting question marks about all this, that they think that this will solve itself but by creating more short-haul jobs with fewer maybe long-haul jobs. Daimler, they're heavily invested in this as well. They have a Detroit Assistance 5.0 package available right now in their 2020 Freightliner Cascadias. And they said so far 90% of their customers have asked or ordered the Detroit Assistance package, which provides for level 2 autonomy. They've also recently announced a partnership with Torque Robotics. They acquired Torque back in 2019 and were testing in Virginia. And now they'll be expanding their testing into New Mexico, just announcing a new test center in Albuquerque with their goal to bring L4 trucking to the road within the decade. That's just a picture of the Detroit Assistance 5.0. You see the pedestrian in front there. That's featuring their suite of safety systems and active brake assist. There's another picture of a Mercedes truck in Europe that they want to have on the road by 2025. The Volvo announced the Vera. This is basically a tug machine for shipyards and everything. It looks more like a Corvette than a truck, but this is being used currently overseas with no cab. Inride is a Swedish company. And I'll show you a couple of images here of there. Of course, there's no cab, there's no driver for some of these images that Inride's using over in Sweden now, started in 2019. Then Audi, there's just a concept Audi truck to take a look at. But the economics are pretty simple. The salary and expense of a driver plus the HOS restrictions and the restrictions on asset utilization are a no-brainer if you're a trucking company executive when you can add on a self-driving piece of equipment for $5,000 or buy a new truck that has all this equipment that will help the truck run longer and get the human from behind the wheel again. Another benefit of the technology is driver coaching. You're probably familiar with Lytx and Samara and OmniTrax and SmartDrive. Interestingly, just a week or so ago, OmniTrax announced the merger or acquisition of SmartDrive. So together they'll use video telematics and dash cams to coach drivers and identify near misses and close calls for coaching purposes. Example one, a particular intersection that certain times of the day you're having an unusual number of near misses or collisions at the same spot for different drivers. It's got to be something wrong at this intersection at that time of day. So the answer could be, based on the coaching and this information, is to reroute. Just don't take that intersection at that time of the day. So you look for clusters of problems and near misses like that you can use to avoid. Example two, rolling stops. 25% of fatalities, 50% of all injuries occur at intersections. So Lytx has taken their machine vision plus their artificial intelligence and triggering rolling stops. That way the machine learning is the eyes and the AI is the brain that can tell you the speed, and it can flag a rolling stop that you can use for coaching purposes to prevent near misses, particularly at intersections. Bendix Wingman has the fusion system, which is able to slow trucks down by 50 miles an hour and is said to eliminate 70% of rear-end crashes. It's coming standard on some trucks now. It can safety direct is the Bendix program, and it can identify good and bad behavior. So you want to prevent catastrophic events and see what's causing the near misses. All right, let's jump gears to electric trucks now. In August of 20, the new study predicted that there would be 54,000 electric trucks on the road by 2025. The two main technologies here, hydrogen fuel cell, which Nikola is using, and a traditional battery pack, which Tesla is using. And interestingly, Tesla and Nikola introduced within 24 hours of each other that they were both building new factories to make these trucks. And why? Well, here's one reason why. CARB, the California Air and Resources Board, in June announced the Advanced Clean Trucks Rule, which is the first in the nation to roll out these limitations on how many diesel-powered vehicles can be sold in California starting in 2024. These limitations increase until 2045, when all new Class 2 through 8 vehicles must be zero emission. And so over the next 25 years, California is going to be mandating or limiting how many diesel vehicles can be sold in the state until finally eliminating them. 15 other states have signed some sort of pact or agreement to follow suit and try to eliminate diesel or fossil fuels by 2050. There's the Tesla. You've heard about the Tesla truck, I'm sure. And they announced on July 2020 that they were going to build this new factory, a gigafactory in Austin, Texas, to build the Semi and the Cybertruck. Elon Musk said it will be a stunning 2-acre ecological paradise. That's the campus where they're going to build these. But they've kept a pretty good low profile. All we've seen is like a lot of highway clips people are getting of them testing randomly. Nikola is much more high exposure. They've just gone public recently and are building a new plant in Arizona. They use the hydrogen fuel cell technology. Went public in June, and news just this past week, GM bought an 11% stake in Nikola in September and will be the exclusive supplier of the hydrogen fuel cells for their Class 8 trucks. They broke ground on this 1 million square foot factory in Arizona in July, where they'll produce 2 of their tractor versions. They expect to get greater than 300-mile range and expect to produce about 35,000 trucks per year. They claim to have about 9,000 non-binding orders, so we'll watch and see how Nikola does with able to get this factory up and to fill those orders. Here's a clip from Nikola. Roll that, please.
Semi-trucks might be able to skip a fill-up at the gas station. Nikola's unveil of the zero-emission vehicles in Arizona shows how truckers can use hydrogen fuel instead of diesel while on the road.
It's the first production truck that I know of around the world that is it's a true fuel cell truck from the ground up.
Trevor Milton started the Nikola Motor Company in his basement. He's hoping to contribute to the clean renewable energy movement with the next generation of semi-trucks.
I grew up driving diesel trucks. I think, you know, there's a place for them. But I also got more and more mad every time I go out running. You look down and you see like the gray soot everywhere that you're breathing as you run, and it's just like I want to scream. And that's just what needs to change, and no one will do it. Finally, I just did it.
The Nikola 2 is being coined as the only truck in the world taking in dirty air and pumping out clean air.
The number one thing is around the emissions, getting rid of the emissions across the board. I want my generation to actually be ahead of the government, to say, you know what, we can innovate faster than the government forces us.
Another one is XOS trucks. They originally were named Thor trucks. They've changed their name to XOS. They're based in Hollywood, California, and they are traditional battery pack electric truck manufacturer as well. They've got partnerships with UPS doing local delivery for their medium-sized trucks. There are a couple of images of Loomis and UPS and people they're partnering with. Daimler says the future is electric, so they're putting battery electric vehicles on the road in every sector in which they compete. Their 2022 e-Cascadia will be ready by the end of 2021. There's just a picture of Daimler's. Volvo has entered into this Lights project. That's their low-impact, green, heavy transport solutions prototype that's going on in California right now. It's a public-private investment with some 15 partners and operating 23 trucks in Southern California. So what happens to the truck driving jobs? There's a big debate. The union, the Teamsters, think it's going to eliminate their jobs. Others say that there's a big shortage in truck driving jobs, and this will just help get better truck drivers instead of creating a problem for out-of-work truck drivers. Here's a quick cartoon. It said Santa got one of those self-driving sleighs and the reindeer at the unemployment office. So that's what the Teamsters and the unions are afraid of. State regulations, they're all over the map. A lot of states have adopted some kind of a AV legislation. From the federal side, we're on our fourth now federal guideline, not a requirement, but guideline. This is 3.0, and you can see some of the principles, safety, et cetera, that were part of AV 3.0, including a multimodal approach to safety and integrating automation. This is 4.0. It just came out. 4.0 is the new under the Trump administration, released in January of 2020, entitled Ensuring American Leadership in Automated Vehicle Technologies. And one of the main things to come out of 4.0 is that details the role of 38 different federal agencies in supporting the AV sector and cross-agency coordination. The House passed the U.S. House passed an AV Act in September 17. Then it got stalled in the Senate, and it's currently in limbo. The industry itself has several voluntary guidelines, and there's several consortiums and groups that have formed together to try to promote safety. Let's talk about insurance real quick. The new paradigm is going to be basically, if there's no driver in the car, how can there be any driver negligence? So if there's an accident, it must be a product liability claim. So fewer accidents will be caused by human drivers, and more liability will be shifted to the car itself. So that means less traditional auto insurance purchased by the driver and more product liability coverage purchased by the manufacturer. So it could be the end of personal auto insurance as we know it if this continues. And several of the car manufacturers have stated they will be responsible for accidents if it occurs in self-driving mode. So a lot of questions we'll be asking will be, who owns the operating system? Was it the software that caused the accident, and who owned the software? It may not be the manufacturer of the car. Do you treat the autonomous vehicle like a human under traditional negligence principles, or do you treat it like a piece of equipment under product liability law? And there's going to be a middle ground for now where there are systems that warn a driver where even if you're in autonomous mode, the driver has to take control of the car. So there's going to be a gray area where now, did the human driver take control of the car when he was supposed to or not? So that'll create a lot of questions. There's a couple of professors have even come up with sort of a workers' comp type system for this that will be a sort of a national fund, a manufacturer's enterprise responsibility fund that will be there to assist with accidents that happen in our AV future. And they do that for the purpose of developing the technology faster. New theory of liability that's just coming up already. We've seen it happen. Plaintiffs' lawyers are saying the truck should have been equipped with the latest tech, which would have prevented the accident. So how do you defend this? Because not every truck's going to have it. It's going to be rolled out slowly. The way you do it is, number one, you say it's not required by NHTSA. It's not yet approved by NHTSA for heavy trucks. It may not be commercially available yet from the manufacturer. It may still be in a testing phase. It may not be sufficiently validated. It may not be sufficiently reliable. And you would have to prove that it would have actually prevented or mitigated the accident if the tech had been used. Should the trucking company wait for even newer technology to come out, or go ahead and buy what's on the market now? And when does the trucking company's obligation to add this new tech occur? What's the cost of the new technology? If a carrier had to install it across his entire fleet, there are very few carriers, even the big ones, who could afford to do that. And you always know the tech will be outdated soon. So again, back to the question, when do you pull the trigger? So the company just needs to show that it's using its very best efforts to research the new technology and the new tech and install it on a trial basis, perhaps. And, you got to look at a small mom and pop company versus a major national carrier, and what are their economic wherewithal to do this and to experiment and to do these add-on equipment. So at some point, though, the L2 tractors will be more readily available and commercially available. And then you may end up closer question of, should the company have ordered the Detroit assistance package that was available at the time if they could afford it? As fleets get older and new trucks come on the market, we'll see this evolve. NHTSA is conducting tests right now on heavy trucks. They're now in phase 2 of some field studies to see if NHTSA will ultimately require some of this technology on trucks. And there's always the cost-benefit analysis of, will the reduction in accidents cover the cost of the additional features? And, avoiding one big fatal crash or one nuclear verdict could cover the cost of the new technology. Crash investigations, I think it will help with this traditional driver error versus software failure. It's going to create a new breed of expert engineer who's going to have to help us unwind these accidents and figure out what happened. Hopefully they'll be able to do so. Now we just use ECM data for braking and speed. With all this new technology, we may be able to recreate the accident sitting at our desk and not even have to go out in the field anymore. The big data, these trucks are data hogs. We're going to be able to, at some point, have this information available to us if 5G comes along and other things that will help us capture all the data that's going to be created by these vehicles. When will they take over? That's a good question, because a lot of people have already set a target and missed it. You see, there are many guaranteed mass deployment of self-driving taxis by 2019, and so we'll just keep pushing along slowly till we get there. But they are operating now, as we mentioned. Kodiak, Waymo, and Too Simple are operating trucks right now in various cities. Waymo's testing in Phoenix and active in Las Vegas with the cars. So it's out there. It's just maybe perhaps moving a little slower than we thought. And in closing, one thing we don't have yet, to my knowledge, is a country song. We thought that with all this AV technology, surely there's going to be a country song one day talking about how my self-driving pickup truck's done left me too. So that's a wrap. Sorry to have to talk so fast and get through this quickly, but I wanted to cover a lot of ground. So thanks for participating today, and we'll be here for any questions you may have. Thank you very much.